Welcome to a theory lesson. What is a dominant seventh chord? It's always necessary to be reminded of the importance of music theory. Theory is not separate from making music, which in this case will be on the piano. Theory enables the understanding of the notes and why the notes are arranged a particular way. Theory allows us to comprehend and analyze the relationship of the notes. In this lesson, we'll explore the dominant seventh chord in two different ways. First, I'll explain the dominant seventh chord according to how it functions within a key signature. Secondly, I'll explain the structure of the dominant seventh chords outside of any key signature. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to know the scales and the key signatures. This includes all major keys and all three forms of the minor keys. It's the basis for fully understanding the music that you play and hear. Today we'll concentrate on the major key signatures, mostly the key of C major as a starting point for reference. The chord qualities I'll be explaining today for the major keys will be different for the minor keys, and the phrase chord quality describes whether a chord is major, minor, augmented, or diminished. So let's get started. The scale of C major has no sharps or flats. It's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. The first tone of this scale is, of course, C. In theoretical terms, the first degree of all scales is called the tonic. The second degree of all scales is called the supertonic. In the key of C major, D is the supertonic. The third note is called the mediant. Here, the third tone of the C scale is E. The fourth tone of scales is called the subdominant. In the scale of C major, the subdominant is F. The fifth tone of scales is called the dominant. In the key of C major, the dominant is G. This is what we'll be studying, but I'll continue through the scale so you'll know the labels for all of the scale degrees. The sixth degree is called the submediant, and in this case of C major, the submediant is A. The seventh degree is called the leading tone. The leading tone is B in the key of C major. And then our last note is C, the tonic again. So for example, the supertonic in the key of D major would be E. It's the second tone of the D scale. The subdominant in the key of B flat major is E flat. E flat is the fourth tone of the B flat scale. Now you can also see how the word dominant applies to the fifth tone of any scale. For example, B is the fifth tone of the E major scale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Therefore, it's the dominant. Now let's talk about chords. We can build a chord on every tone of the scale. This is why it's so important to think in terms of what key you're playing in. Here's our C scale, going back to the scale of C again. On the first tone of the C major scale, we can build a triad using the notes within the scale, or the key, that we're in. To build a triad on C, the tonic, it will be C, E, G. And this is called the one chord because it's built on the first note of the scale. One chords will always be major in any major key. I'll explain how to arrive at the chord qualities in just a moment. Let's build a triad on the second tone of the C scale, which is D. Remember, we use only the notes of the C major scale because we're in the key of C major. This will be D, F, A. It's a minor triad, and all 2 chords are minor in any major key. Now build a triad on the median, the 3rd tone of the scale, which is E. And remember to use only the notes of the C major scale with no sharps and no flats. We end up with E, G, B. And this is also a minor triad. All 3 chords are minor in a major key. Now we'll build a chord on the 4th note of the scale, the subdominant. In this case, the subdominant is F. The triad will be F-A-C. This is a major chord, and all 4 chords are major in a major key. Next, we are at the 5th note of the scale, the dominant. The dominant in the key of C major is G. The triad built on G is G-B-D. This is a major triad, and all 5 chords are major in a major key. We'll return to our dominant chord in just a few minutes because we haven't added the 7th yet. But first we'll continue with the explanation of the chords built on the tones of the scale. Our next tone of the scale is the 6th tone. This is the submediant, and it's A. Building a triad on A using the notes of the C scale gives us A, C, E. It's a minor triad, and all 6 chords in a major key will be minor. The 7th note of the C major scale is B, the leading tone. Building a chord on B in the scale of C major gives us B, D, and F. This chord quality is diminished. Diminished triads only occur naturally on the 7th chords in a major key. That brings us up to the 1st note of the scale, the tonic, C. Now you know the triads of all the major keys. Another way to break down the triads for all major key signatures is this. All 1 chords are major. All 2 chords are minor. These are the chords in the key of C that we just went over. All 3 chords are minor. 4 chords are major. All 5 chords, the dominants, are major. The 6 chords are minor. And here's the 7th chords. It's diminished. And then our 1 chord. Is it starting to fit together like a puzzle? In the key of D major, the 4 chord is G major. In the key of A flat major, the 2 chord will be B flat minor. And so on. You can understand why it's necessary to know the key signatures in order to easily play and understand the notes that you're learning. Now let's focus on the 5 chord, the dominant. We can add 7ths, 9ths, and more to all of the triads of any key. But our focus today is adding a 7th to the dominant, the 5th tone of the scale. What has been demonstrated so far is this. The dominant chord is built on the 5th tone of the major scale. And the triad quality will always be major, and this happens naturally in any key. What about adding a 7th to this triad built on the 5th note of the scale? In a dominant 7th chord, the 7th will always be minor. In other words, all dominant 7th chords consist of a major triad. Here we are on our G major triad, the dominant of C. and a minor 7th. The way to add a minor 7th is to count 7 tones above the root of the chord. Remember to use only the notes of the key that you're in. We're in the key of C major. G is the 5th note of the scale, which is the dominant. G is the root of the G triad. Counting 7 notes up, we will come to F. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not F sharp because there's no F sharp in the key of C. Our dominant 7 chord in the key of C is G, B, D, F. This process applies and occurs naturally in any key. For instance, in the key of F major, there's one flat, a B flat. It's F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. The 5th tone of the F scale, the dominant, is C. Build a triad from C using the notes of the F major scale, which will be, I'll come down here, C, E, G, which is our C major triad, and next count up 7 notes from the root, which is C, using the notes of the F major scale. And that will allow us to arrive at the 7th of the dominant 7th chord. So the 7th above C is going to be a B flat. Here we go. C, D, E, F, G, A, and now B flat. The dominant 7th chord built on C is C, E, G, B flat. This is the dominant 7th or the 5-7 chord in the key of F major. It would be a good idea here to talk about triad qualities and major and minor 7ths. A major triad in root position, which means the root is the lowest note, consists of 4 half steps to 3 half steps. I call this a 4-to-3 formula. A half step does not skip any notes. Using this formula, you can figure out any major triad from any note. For instance, here's a C major triad, C, E, G. We're going to count half steps. From C to C sharp is 1. C sharp to D is 2 half steps. D to D sharp is 3 half steps. And then D sharp to E is 4 half steps. So there's our 4 half steps. And now 3 half steps. E to F is 1 half step. F to F sharp is 2. F sharp to G is 3. That shows you the 4-to-3 formula. A minor triad in root position, you can just lower the 3rd of the chord. For instance, here's C major. The 3rd of the chord is E, and now you can lower it. Hear the difference? Here's the major triad. It has a happy sound. A minor triad can have a sad sound or a melancholy sound. And this is what I call the 3-to-4 formula. For instance, here we'll count half steps. From here to here is 1, 2, 3. And now from the D sharp to E, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where I get the 3-to-4 formula. Now for the 7ths, a major 7th. Let's go back to our C major triad. A major 7th is a half step down from the root octave. So here's C to C. Go down a half step. Go down another half step, and now it's a minor. So octave, major 7, minor 7. For instance, here is our G major triad. Here's the root above the octave. A half step down is a major 7. And in this case, that's an F sharp. And then the minor 7th is a whole step down. A whole step skips one note. So now this is your G major triad and your F minor 7, which is a dominant 7 chord. This information leads to the second item on the topic of dominant 7 chords, the structure. I want to repeat that all dominant 7th chords consist of a major triad and a minor 7. This happens naturally in any major key. Let's think about an A dominant 7 in root position. The major triad built on A is A, C sharp, E. We can use the 4-3 formula. So here, from A to A sharp is 1, A sharp to B is 2, B to C is 3, C to C sharp is 4. Okay, so there's our 4 half steps. Now, C sharp to D is 1, D to D sharp is 2, D sharp to E is 3. There's our 4-3. We know we have a major triad. And now we want to find a minor 7. So here's our octave. Our major 7 is down a half step. We go down another half step or whole step, and that's our minor 7. So here is our dominant 7th chord built on A. A, C sharp, E, G. However, knowing that the A dominant 7th chord is the 5-7 chord of D major, and the key of D major has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp, enables you to know the function of the chord. It allows you to understand the relationship of that dominant 7th chord to the surrounding notes. And it also helps you to identify the notes of the A dominant 7 chord quicker and easier. We've just examined 2 very important theoretical aspects of the dominant 7 chord. You've done a terrific job with a lot of information. Great work. I truly hope this theory lesson helps with your knowledge of the function and the structure of dominant 7 chords. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe so that you receive the latest teaching, training, and performance videos.